palavra tecnologia tradicionalmente nos remete à ideia de manufatura. A agricultura parecia ser mais simples, menos passível de transformações por conta dos avanços da ciência e da técnica, para além da manipulação genética tradicional. As aplicações da energia hidráulica, depois os motores, a combustão e a energia elétrica, deram origem às indústrias de alimentos e à agroindústria. Mas isso não desfez a percepção de que as atividades agropecuárias seriam menos dinâmicas que as atividades manufatureiras. Isso começou a mudar com os avanços científicos e tecnológicos do final do século XX. A biotecnologia moderna permitiu a obtenção de variedades mais resistentes a pragas e menos perecíveis, e de micro-organismos que ajudam a fertilizar os solos e o desenvolvimento de novos usos para os produtos agropecuários. O avanço acelerado das tecnologias de comunicação e informação chegou ao campo e interconectou e automatizou os processos de cultivo e criação. O processamento inteligente de informações climáticas colhidas de satélites em tempo real e pelos sensores e drones que monitoram localmente cultivos e criações orientam hoje sistemas precisos de irrigação, adubagem e aspersão de defensivos, gerando menos impacto ambiental e mais eficiência no uso de água e energia. Tratores, semeadeiras e colheitadeiras autônomas executam com rapidez tarefas cada vez mais complexas, reduzem o desperdício e permitem maior integração da agropecuária à indústria de alimentos, também em rápida transformação. Como sabemos, onde há inovação, há propriedade intelectual. Quando falamos de inovações nos campos da inteligência artificial e da engenharia genética, precisamos falar do desafio permanente de desenvolver meios legais que propiciem a proteção efetiva desses ativos intangíveis fundamentais e rastrear o seu emprego. Esse painel foi concebido para nos atualizar nos diferentes aspectos dessa discussão, que tem muito a contribuir para o mais rápido atingimento dos Objetivos de Desenvolvimento Sustentável e com a construção de uma economia circular.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? I hope so. Now we're going to start panel number 5, Intellectual Property in Agribusiness, from genetic technology to automation. The importance of agribusiness to the Brazilian economy is undisputable. 25% of Brazilian GDP, exports are 45% of all exports in Brazil. In other words, nearly one fourth of what's produced in Brazil, and nearly half of our exports relate to agribusiness. And technology progress throughout the decades, as really well indicated in this introductory video, and innovation, technology innovation in the sector is incredible. Precision agriculture, use of drones, sensors, management softwares. Innovation is very diversified. So in this, we have intellectual property playing a role. The idea in this panel is the intimate relationship between intellectual property and agribusiness activities. So we have 3 experts in agribusiness, and also a moderator who's an expert, also a diversified audience that is going to give us a wide range of perspectives when it comes to IP and agribusiness. Just very quickly, each speaker is going to have 20 minutes for a presentation, and at the end, we're going to have 30 minutes for Q&A and debate. And the panel is going to last 90 minutes, and we cannot go beyond that time. If you have any questions throughout the presentations, you can put it on the chat. I will be monitoring, as well as Priscilla, who's been monitoring. Andrea Diaz is going to be the first speaker before anything else, I will read a brief resume of everyone. The complete resume is on the ABPI site. If you are interested, André is an agronomist engineer. He has an MBA in business at the University of São Paulo. He's the chairman of Agriculture Sustentável, and the second speaker is Mariana Caetano. She has a degree in letters from Mackenzie, Agribusiness in the University of São Paulo, business from HGV. She is from KPTL. And the last is Edson Souza, a bachelor degree from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. He has a degree from Fiorus and a master in biotechnology and ethics from the Sheffield University in the United Kingdom. He works with intellectual property at Bayer Brazil. Priscila Castillo Barra is a partner of Casnar Leonardas and coordinator of Cultivars Committee at ABPI. And André Dias, you have the floor. In addition to the topic on the panel, he's going to make a presentation for where he works. Go ahead and start the panel.
Good morning. Thank you for your generous introduction. I think the agro is quite complex. It's difficult to be an expert, but that's part. We try and help the ones who are looking to a specialization. We've been operating in 7 years in the agribusiness with an expertise in the field. So today I'll be talking about some of our research. We have consumption panels. And in this case, we communicate with the farmers and we collect information regarding fertilizers, machines, seeds, pesticides. So I'll put all this information into context, and then Priscilla will ask difficult questions probably. So the idea is to give you an overview on the importance of innovation and the pace of things. We were talking prior to the beginning of our panel, and we have the granting of intellectual property through patents, but in the agro, the evolution takes place differently. Mariana will probably be talking about other technologies. I think our presentations will be complementary, but it's important to have the ownership of such value. And the regulatory and legal system must be in line with this idea, and that's the topic of my presentation. So good morning, Priscilla and Edson as well. So I'll now share my screen. When you talk about input, soya is one of the most important products. Soya represents more than 50%. And this represents an important amount. So I'll now start, and Priscilla will help me out. As you can see, and here we have the evolution of the production per planted area. We have the historical evolution from 97, 98 crop until the last one, 2021. As you can see, the area grows by 5%, and the production increases by 11.2%. We are the greatest exporter of soya in the world, and the productivity grew by 45%. It was the production or the expansion of land, indeed. Actually, the innovation grew much more exponentially than the size of exploitable land. And now you can see the area evolution. This is not planted area, this is not cultivated area. This is the areas assessed by Spark. In yellow, you have this, and then you have a summary of the biotechnologies that are used with soya seeds. In yellow, you have the latest technology, which is the ABPI, the soya that is resistant to caterpillar attack. And the soya is the second generation of the Roundup Ready. It is the second generation of soya that is resistant to the total pesticide, a non-selective pesticide. As you can see, this is the evolution throughout the years. And then you have the first generation of RR soya. The patent has been waived already. And he represented over 90% of the cultivated area, but now it is about 40%. And in red, you have the traditional non-transgenic soya, and it depends on the demand that you have. The other technology, LiberLink, is not so expressive. And what you can see here is the huge expansion of this proprietary technology combined with the caterpillar resistance and the glyphosate, amounting to more than 80% of the cultivated area and 87% of the market value, which is directly related to the previous slide. And as I said, it accounts for over 87% of the market value, totaling $2.6 billion for, the price paid by the farmers. In average, the technology costs 40% more per hectare to the farmer. It is more valuable. It's more expensive because it provides more convenience, and it provides greater added value to the chain. And then the return on investment is evident. It's mirrored in the adoption of technology throughout the time that is greater every year. And you can see this very strong adoption, overall adoption of technology throughout the years. There are other technologies for some time in the market that haven't been implemented widely. You needed to have a value proposition as well. The technology should really bring clear benefits to the chain. And then you have an analysis of the use of inputs, and we are most specifically talking about pesticides, herbicides, pesticides, or fungicides. But basically, pesticides. We have a scale, and in green, you see the P product, which is a product that has patents. Can you hear me well? Asks the speaker. Can you hear me? Asks the speaker, Mr. Diaz. We can hear you well, says Mr. Souza. Sorry, my image was frozen, so I was a bit scared. Anyway, so here you have, again, all the inputs that are used by farmers currently, and we divide them into products with a valid patent. In yellow, we have the PP. So it is a post-patent product, but it is not competitive in Brazil, and I'm going to tell you why shortly. And in red, you have the purely genetic. It is post-patent and traded in the country with competitiveness. It is about 46% of the market, and the post-patent products that are exclusively traded by the company that had the patent represent about 27%. As you can see in here, the representativity of patent products decreases throughout time. It was 42% in green, as you can see, in 16, 17, and now it is 28%. And the number of discovery and creation of molecules grew exponentially, and the return on investment is once again very clear. We have the figures in dollars, and because we have the impact of the rate exchange devaluation. The farmer does not use pesticides because he or she likes it, but because it is necessary. We live in a tropical weather with higher threats than in other areas of the world. So we needed to protect the yield until the end of the cycle. And take a look at this list. And wait, this is not a critics of the assessments that are carried out regarding the products, because the pesticides is a product that sometimes is used in food, so it needs to be assessed. So currently, science requires more and more studies. In the 50s, you had 5,000 molecules per year, and one molecule was used. So 5,000 molecules were tested and only one was picked. And there were basically two studies, subchronic toxicity and acute toxicity. Now you needed to test over 160,000 molecules to have one new product. And I'm not a medical expert, but take a look at the number and the diversity of studies that needed to be carried out in order to have an approval. So genotoxicity, environmental destination, I mean, a broad list. And then the rate between the molecules that are researched and discovered have a lower rate. And as a consequence, if in the past, $152 million were spent in order to discover one molecule, and here I'm talking about the 80s, 90s, the investment is now in the range of over 280 million in order to have one molecule that can be used, and not always with the chance of having a successful result. So the cost for molecules doubled in 20 years. And sometimes some innovative molecules are not financially feasible. Equally, the level of assessments and the complexity of the new requirements, they reduce the attractivity for the development of new products. So the farmers will mostly focus on seeds that can provide a return on investment, such as soya, corn, wool, sugarcane. But then if you think about all the types of seeds with a lower economic relevance, they are subjected to a lower return on investment. So it's more difficult to have such products. And in here, you can see the evolution of pesticide registration. Felipe and Priscilla, we've talked about that briefly. We have a graph that goes from June 2005, June 2006, until June 2020, June 2021. We developed this for the pesticide trade union. And you have the PFE, the equivalent product, the generic, the technical equivalent product, which is the red curve, the new formulated product, the real innovation, and the new technological product, the new molecule. And then you can see, despite the evolution and in the approval of patent filings, we have between 300 to 400 grants per year. However, more deposits are made, more filings are made, so the success rate is not proportional. So the granting is actually not proportional to the amount of applications. So only 10% represent new technology with higher efficiency and lower toxic impact. And 90% of new registries issued in 2020 are actually to equivalent generic products, which is good to Brazil, but they do not mean innovation. It's more of the same. And also there is no correlation between the increase in the number of registered products and higher consumption of products in Brazil. And it's important to say that because people say, wow, 400 new registries, we are going to have so much poison around. No, because the registration does not mean the product will be traded and used. The farmer will not use more products because more products are registered and available. What we have as a consequence is the competition and the dance of the companies. And then, of course, you can see the equivalent products, the technical products, for the equivalent technical product, PTE, that is precisely equal to the other. It takes 3 to 4 years to be registered. So even the generic products takes longer than in other countries that compete with Brazil in the production of soya or other agricultural products. The equivalent formulated product, PVE, 5 to 7 years. The new formulated products, 6 to 7. And we have some products that took 12 years to have the registration because you need assessments and analysis. And the technical new product from 7 to 8 years in average to obtain a registration. And Felipe can maybe talk about that. And this was confirmed by the Supreme Court. The lifetime is counted as of the filing date. And eventually, if it takes long, the company will have less time to trade the product, and of course, it reduces the attractiveness. This is a summary that I brought to you, and the good news is that we had a increase in the patents that have been filed, the applications that have been filed. And in a nutshell, that's what I wanted to tell you. And just a few topics that we could discuss later on. And of course, I'm open for questions and considerations. That's what I had to say. Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you, Andre, for your presentation. Very interesting, the figures. And we will have great information to subsidize our debate. Mariana, go right ahead. You have the floor now. Good morning, everyone. Well, it's a pleasure to be here to speak to you. Today, I am going to be focusing on the perspective of startups, a market that has grown a lot, food techs, fintechs, agribusiness, technology companies, everything that brings solutions to agribusiness, a sector that has grown a lot, very much driven by the agribusiness figures and the impact that this industry has in the Brazilian economy. And also, given the sheer size of challenges we're faced with, so we have seen huge growth of agribusiness startups. And I will be speaking about the capital KPTL, a company that's been around for 30 years. a result of a merger that has been working with intellectual property activities, linking academia with private sector. Since 2008, we already invested in biotechnology. So this world is very familiar to our company. And also the importance of all these startups that have come into the market that we assess when they go out seeking investments. We see the direct relationship between innovation and intellectual property. So here, our business, which is venture capital, a lot of people believe is very complex to understand what venture capital is. In fact, we get resources, invest in innovative initiatives, and we help transforming and driving these companies, turning innovation into wealth, generating concrete results, and brings positive impact on the society. How do we go about transforming innovation? Intellectual property issues, and I will be giving you some examples in case of the agribusiness that has some particularities when we talk about hardware innovation. You need to describe how a certain equipment, how a certain process, what was created, and how you innovate. So initially, entrepreneurs are a little bit afraid because in the beginning, they don't think that this is so relevant. So they go around conducting business as usual and prioritizing other things. And then our fund, we are experts and we know the market. This is where we bring compliance and guidance when it comes to governance of their asset, which is innovation. Today, for a company to get investments, to attract investments, the first thing we ask after they make a presentation, if they have protection on the trademark, and especially the innovation. And very often, most often, they don't. So the recommendation before they start trying to attract investment, for them to start the process. So innovation is fast. And getting faster all the time. So they sometimes believe they should solve this in the future. We have some examples where, for example, there was a company that had to describe in the notice it was a medication. Research on organic solution bringing benefit for a number of pest control. They invested 2 years to find out what the formula was. And when he came into the market, he needed to describe the formula and how the application was made. Because in agriculture, we can't just use a product. You need to have a prescription. Instead of describing the prescription and the components, he wasn't under protection. He exposed the formula was exposed, and very quickly companies from other countries and even in Brazil started to copy and sold it for less money. So the company had to close operations, went bankrupt. That's an example, a concrete example. And when we talk about startups, usually they apply for trademark, but they forget to protect the software or hardware intelligence. in terms of hardware, we have an example of a company that registered a kind of scale for livestock. It was their invention. So they filed for the patent registration. There was a registration was actually filed, and then a multinational company also invented a pretty similar scale. So the startup actually managed to contest the multinational company because they were protected. Today is probably one of the biggest companies controlling confinement in Brazil. So example, both for hardware. So if they didn't have the protection, the company would have gone bankrupt. It would have gone bust. And for software development and people in technology, you know, people get access to data very quickly. So you need to first make sure that you have a registration, because otherwise you may have problems. So this is a very important issue when picking an investment. Today, we have a team around Brazil. There are many opportunities around the country because agribusiness, you have different profiles, microclimates, producers. So we have a funnel of opportunities, which are startups. Often, every day, we have access. Are they going to manage to protect their business? When we talk about an entry barrier, if companies don't have a concern to register the business today, it's very easy to copy business models. So those who get there first, who are protected, will have significant benefits. These opportunities these companies contact us. So out of all these 10,105 have received an investment. We're talking about agribusiness today, but we have a whole chain of sectors, and we have a number of cases, protection cases, but especially in agribusiness, where it's an area where a number of startups have grown. You have hardware, you have formulas. It is a sector that should be very alert. Here we have our portfolio, just to give you an illustration. It is a fund and now we are looking at opportunities linked to this sector. So we are very concerned in protecting and guiding the startups. What we usually say when we talk about smart money, investing with strategic money, is to guide these businessmen to do their homework. But actually, you don't need to choose between one and the other. You have to do everything. You don't need to do everything at the same time, but you need to be protected to get into the market. And when it comes to innovation, I think it's very important that you have it, people should have it very clear that you can't separate one thing from the other. This topic should be more exploited. We haven't talked so much about this, and our role is to help these businessmen.
Thank you. Very interesting to see this perspective and to know the importance of the propositions from the sector to make investments feasible. And so now you have the floor. I'll share my screen. I hope you can see it. So, good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be part of this panel with colleagues, the moderator, the debater, and thank you very much for ABPI for the invitation to integrate this panel and to be able to talk about such an interesting topic. I'd like to start my presentation with a provocation. I'd like to ask you, I'd like to propose a machine time, and a machine time that would allow us to go forward and backward in time. The only thing this machine wouldn't allow us is to stay in the present. So having submitted the same idea to a few friends, I realized that many people desire to go back in time. A time where there was no social network, no fake news, no reality shows, maybe some attraction for nostalgia, or people who are disappointed with the recent disasters that somehow prevent us from seeing the good side of things. But me, I want to go to the future. Am I an optimistic? Maybe. But I do believe that the opportunities do not go backwards. And although we take into account recent events, and of course they haven't been easy, maybe we've been through the best times we've ever had in the planet. Never before had we been able to develop a safe and effective vaccine against a disease in such a short period of time. If we think this way when it comes to agriculture, in the past century, agriculture was rudimentary. Soya, it was a curiosity. It was not expressively traded nationally and internationally. The work was manual work, and about 2% of rural properties didn't have machinery, any type of machinery. In 2021, and also back then, farmers didn't have information and technology enough. The situation was almost dramatic. Now in 2021, we have a new scenario. And I've recently read an article at Folha de São Paulo newspaper. And the article said that if in the past parents told their kids that unless they studied, they would remain in the countryside, today if they don't study, they cannot stay in the countryside as well, because with technology, we have huge advancement in terms of solutions. And these solutions require permanent training. We are talking about drones, high precision machinery, artificial intelligence, tolerant seeds, seeds that are tolerant to pesticides, that are resistant to insects, endless technologies that disrupted the market and allowed Brazil to shift from importer to a world provider. That's what we call 4.0 agriculture. We now live in 4.0 agriculture. Notwithstanding, I'm not going to be naive and say there are no challenges ahead. Of course, they do exist. If we think about 2050 and we draw a forecast, the estimate is to have over 2 billion new inhabitants in the country, which would require 50% more production of food. On the other side, if we take climate change into account, and climate change have a more volatile climate, a warmer climate, as a consequence, according to the forecast, we will lose 17% of our crops and yields. Also, if we combine the increase in the population and the cultivated land, there will be a reduction by 20% in cultivated land per person. In other words, we will have 1/4 of a soccer field to produce food per person. And in a nutshell, we needed to have a food offer in a quantity that is sufficient while using our natural resources in a very reasonable manner. This is a challenge that we have in face of us. And such challenge is going to be taken by our organization. And the solution to this challenge lies on innovation. Innovation can make of agriculture a sustainable solution. And we wish to anticipate needs, to develop products that provide better food for the planet. Here in the slide, you can see the 3 main pillars for solutions. First, you have seeds and traits combined with an innovative portfolio of yield protection and digital agriculture, highly advanced digital agriculture. We can see in here the corn production evolution in smaller parcels and how we managed to produce more with less. This translates into opportunities so that we can keep on producing better and aiming at a sustainable agriculture with customized solutions. And now the main part of my presentation.
as pessoas elas realizaram o melhoramento de plantas ao
The
longo
way people
desde os primórdios,
improved
ela realmente evoluiu bastante.
production throughout the years
Talvez os princípios
evolved
mais
throughout
básicos,
time,
fundacionais,
and the most
tenham
underlying
permanecido, que são,
principles
eu
remained,
diria, a observação
and they
e a
include
seleção.
the observation
Lá
and the
nos
selection.
primórdios da civilização,
At the beginning of civilization,
o melhoramento de plantas por cruzamento.
we improved plants
Com isso,
through
a gente tinha
the combination,
inserção, uma combinação de
and we
um
had
genoma
the combination of gene with a
nunca sabia qual era
parent gene, but we never knew what half was included in the combination.
Isso poderia levar
It was,
bastante tempo para você conseguir
we were making attempts,
uma geração, né, com as características de que você
we were operating in an trial and error scheme until finding a solution. And this was especially difficult because at the time we didn't rely on basic genetic information and how the genetic composition of plants had a close link to phenotypes they displayed.
Passado para meados na década de
Then
1970,
in the 70s, we have the genetic engineering
a gente conseguiu inserir
that allowed us to
no genoma
use and insert specific features in the genome of a plant. If we compare a plant to a smartphone,
veria a engenharia genética como
we could say the genetic engineering is similar to an app download to a smartphone. The same way the smartphone remains the same with the app, a genetically modified plant remains the same plant. However, it also has additional features, the possibility of carrying out additional activities. And then in the 90s, we had the introduction of new improvement techniques, namely the genomic edition. Through genomic edition, we can do the same, but with higher precision if compared to other methods. For instance, we can deactivate an unfavorable feature, such as the susceptibility to a disease, as well as making another feature available, such as tolerance to drought or stress. The genomic edition technique can be seen in the improvement precision technique as a technique that makes features available. And this is very important because it's important to have such an enabling system so that we can continue investing in human resources, in time, and we can also secure financial resources for a sustainable agriculture. Regarding genomic edition, I'll try and talk about a specific system that became very known, which is the CRISPR-Cas9 system. The CRISPR-Cas9 and the use as a genomic edition tool is the result of work carried out by several scientists in the world. Many people associate CRISPR, which is a set of tools.
Talvez fique claro por que a gente prefira chamar simplesmente de CRISPR.
But I mean, it's a complicated acronym that clustered regularly into spaced short palindromic repeats, CRISPR. Many people associate CRISPR's development to two scientists that won the Chemistry Nobel Prize, Jennifer and Emmanuel Charpentier. However, actually, the foundational work referring to CRISPR were made by Francisco Mojica in Spain in the 90s. Francisco Mojica, I realized that bacteria had fragments, DNA fragments that were repeated, interspaced, repeated. And after that, he realized that these DNA fragments corresponded to a viral genetic material. And then he drew a hypothesis through which the CRISPR mechanism would operate as a immune bacterian adaptive system. In other words, when a virus attacks a bacteria, when a virus attacks a cell, it injects its genetic material so that it can reproduce. When it comes to a bacteria, fragments of its DNA are inserted in CRISPR's locus, and they represent a genetic memory of past infections suffered by the bacteria. It is a vaccination portfolio, so as to say, vaccination card. And these bits of DNA that are incorporated in the CRISPR's locus give rise to the production of a molecule that we call RNA guide. And the RNA, if we talk in simple terms, is a chemical cousin of the DNA. There is a complementarity between DNA and the RNA, and it can be associated to the DNA molecule. The RNA molecule that is produced through the system is associated to the Cas9 protein, and they go in the mission. They operate as a sentinel that will scan the bacteria looking for pieces of viral DNA that correspond to the ones that can be associated with the RNA. Once you find it, the Cas9 prevents the viral reproduction. And then there were many insights in the development of the genetic technology. It's possible to have this mechanism of immune bacteria adaptation to fill gaps in genomes. You can, for instance, produce if RNA fragment with 20 bases, a short one, a very simple one, quite easy to be done. And it's possible to have an association between this fragment and a Cas9 protein. And it operates as a text processor where you edit typing errors. So this combination between the RNA and the Cas9 scans the cell looking for bits that can be associated to the RNA. So the Cas9 will then act at that very point. And then a cell that has such an operation is kind of frenetic. It needs to activate a reparation mechanism. And one repair mechanism is filling the gap, you know? And in order to do so,
algumas bases. Isso estaria até
some bases might be lost, which would be okay if we were up to genomic editing to silence the genes. But there is another repair mechanism that is very interesting, namely a homologue reparation. When we think about diploid cells, such as human beings, there are two sets of chromosomes. One is one that comes from the father and the other that comes from the mother. And when there is a defect, a problem, you can use the homologous. You can use the other one to carry out the repair. And okay, this can be done with the counterpart fragment. But we can also deceive the cell. We can leave the counterpart fragments, but we can put something in the middle, other bases, so as to say, and then change it, assign new features to that gene, to that DNA fragment. This is so interesting. How does Bayer uses the CRISPR-Cas tool and genomic edition in general? Our R&D is focused in plant architecture and stress tolerance, but there are other uses. We know that we have important possibilities when it comes to this tool. We have a Gemoplasma library that is vast in addition to an exceptional platform. So it wouldn't make sense to make use of this tool without a genetic library that can be scanned and improved. I need to be able to edit this library. There is a project underway that combines genomic editing with other techniques such as improvement. And I would like to show you a video about this project. So if the technicians could please launch the video.
Agriculture is the new front line. Farms are the new climate frontier. Innovation is the new sustainability. And short is the new big thing for corn. We're exploring breeding, biotech and gene editing approaches to do even more with less. Growing corn that's shorter, thicker and sturdier, stalks that can stand up to harsh winds and challenging weather conditions. Reducing crop loss, conserving resources, helping farmers protect crops and the planet. Field tests are happening now. This is just one way we're shaping the future of agriculture.
Excelente. E também a gente não para por aí, né?
And you know, that's not the end, of course. When it comes to precision improvements, we combine genetic improvement tools with other systems, such as data predictive analysis, robotics, automation. And as a consequence, we can shift from an approach where we select the better to something where we can have the best as of the beginning of the project.
Aí. Bom, passando para as questões gerais sobre a propriedade intelectual.
Some overall questions when it comes to intellectual property and precision improvement. We know there is a dispute concerning the invention of CRISPR-Cas9 technology and its use as a tool for genomic edition. And this dispute is taking place, especially in the United States, and it hasn't ended. On the one hand, you have a group composed of the University of California, Berkeley, and on the other side, the Broad Institute and the MIT Harvard. So they would have filed their applications for a priority patent in May and December 2012, a time where the United States didn't had the first to file place in order, in force. So there were some interference procedures. The first interference procedure that took place in the United States somehow made a separation. It is stated that the inventions by Berkeley were different, made by Berkeley were different, and that the Broad Institute had actually a specificity for eukaryotic cells, and that this wouldn't be a direct consequence of the revelation that was included in the initial filing by Berkeley. So this dispute is underway, and now there is a new interference procedure. According to this new procedure, one of the first findings, if I'm not mistaken, is that the disclosure made by Berkeley Group wouldn't allow a technician to put the invention into practice when it comes to the eukaryotic cells. But this is now under priority phase, and they will verify the laboratory registries of each institution. Overall, in Brazil, we have the first to file system, even though the guidelines indicate that a document, a request and application can only be considered for patent requirements analysis when a technician puts the matter into practice. It cannot be an abstraction, so that it needs to have some practice associated. So in a different system, we have somehow the same solution. So the applications haven't had an examination, so we are now only forecasting what can be the solution. And in Brazil, if the patentability criteria is met and there is no legal ban, the techniques would be patent in principle. And I believe that the CRISPR-Cas9 is a good example in order to demystify a concept through which enabling technologies are somehow dominated by private companies. When we study this graph that was published by Nature Biotechnology in 2018, the scenario we can see is dominated by research institutes and universities. Therefore, quite different from this myth in place.
Sem sombra de dúvidas, eu diria...
Without a shadow of a doubt, I can affirm that the investment in innovation and the intellectual property protection are highly important for the agribusiness and its development. Maybe I've exceeded my time, Apologies. But this is only a small bit of what lies ahead. Scientists are intensively working towards the development of new solutions, and they are also forging the future of agriculture. So if you allow me, I want to come back to my initial question, my initial provocation, and ask you to think about it carefully,
Definitivamente, sem
to
nenhuma
give it a
hesitação.
second thought, because I have no doubts I want to go to the future. I know that now, at the present, we cannot cultivate in other planets. This is still a fiction, but the opportunities are extraordinary.
A máquina e ajustá-la.
We can use the machine and adjust it to our needs, to our wishes. We can take that machine wherever we want, and I know we can do that. And that's what the planet needs. Thank you.
Maravilha, Edson. Obrigado pela.
Excellent, Edson. Thank you so much for your informative presentation, for the sheer class on genetic editing. I would like to thank all speakers for all the presentations. They were all very interesting and gave us a very wide perspective on agribusiness activities. And now we open for Q&A by giving the floor to Priscilla. Please go ahead, make your comments and or ask questions directly to the speakers. Go right ahead, you have the floor now. Thank you so much, Felipe. First of all, I'd like to thank the organization of ABPI Congress for inviting me for this interesting panel and for having the opportunity to share the panel with all these incredible speakers, Edson, Marianne, and Lori. I mean, and Andre. Everything is converging to the same point, the importance of intellectual property to a conducive environment for agribusiness. Before starting with the debate itself, I think it's very important to show some figures that show the importance of agribusiness in Brazil. It is recognized that the agribusiness in Brazil is the one that most generates jobs around the world. It has essential importance not only for the economy in terms of wealth generation, but also for human development. In Brazil, agribusiness represents nearly 25% of the GDP in 2020. This is nearly 2 trillion reais in its participation. This is the largest participation of the sector on a very difficult year as a result of the pandemic. So this also allows that all the players were able to capitalize and invest in technologies that will produce interesting results in the future. I think I will ask Andre to make his comments to bring some interesting results. It's for 2021, this year, according to some studies of CPEA, agribusiness may go beyond 30% of the GDP in Brazil. So also, according to a study by the Ministry of Agriculture, for a period of 2 decades, there are perspectives, interesting perspectives in grain production that's going to go from 236 million tons in 2019 to over 300 million in 2029, a period of 10 years, sorry. So it is estimated that the cultivated area is going to grow 15% until 2029, about 10 million hectares in growth in 10 years. As from the human perspective, according to the Confederation of Agriculture in Brazil, agribusiness in Brazil register 60,000 new jobs. This was the best job creation in 10 years, going against, unlike the other sectors that did not create jobs as a result of a pandemic. Well, in addition to this great success, in terms of innovation, Brazil is still not up to scratch and still facing a number of challenges. In 2020, we were in position number 66 in a rank of 100 countries from a list produced by the Cornell University, among other institutions. Brazil still behind Chile, Mexico, and Costa Rica. So we still have a long way to go. One of the features of agribusiness is the high competitiveness that was very clear by all three presentations, both domestically as well as abroad. In addition, this industry has inherent risks of the production process, and there are also risks related to volatility caused by external factors where farmers don't have much control. For example, exchange rates, issues of supply and demand, climate issues, and so on. Obviously, for agribusiness, in order for it to become competitive and productive here and abroad, it's very important to operate with more efficiency. And as it has become very clear by the presentation, agribusiness is a synonym to innovation and technology. Andre and Edson showed interesting data. Edson showed research made by Bayer, some of the research by Bayer, and Andre, including these technologies in the sector. So the investment in new technologies happen in a number of layers of processes, products, from a precision genetic improvement. Edson very brilliantly gave us a sheer class, and the search for new genes is very interesting. That will allow for generation of plants that are tolerant to droughts or drought resistant, producing sweeter fruit, more starch. So the sky's the limit when it comes to creativity, as well as development of the pesticides, new equipment, use of artificial intelligence, as well as management softwares that will help in automation and in the connection with the global market. This was shown very clearly by Edson. He showed the evolution since we were still doing agriculture with animal pulled equipment. Now we use sensors, drones, the Internet of Things. And when it comes to agriculture 5.0, we're going to be using artificial intelligence to help decision making. So for the success of agribusiness, you need to have a development. We have a population that is growing and arable land that's going down. So you can only manage with technology and professional skills and innovation. As the agribusiness sector is looking for better processes, it's also important that companies are aware of trends in the market and seek to improve their products and services, obviously with the intention of reducing costs, production costs, at the same time improving productivity. as well as profitability for all players. So as very well put by Andre and the market research carried out by Spark, we see that farmers are actually willing to adopt technology seeds, more expensive seeds, if they mean a competitive advantage. One example is the intact soya technology, which I think is what he detected in his research, that's still protected by patents in Brazil. And then finally, Mariana brought her contribution showing the work of a venture capital manager investing in promising startups. We don't need to say that they carry innovation in their DNA, and usually they want to develop disruptive, novel technologies. At the same time, there's a challenge because these companies need guidance on how to survive and how to stay in such a competitive market as the agribusiness. In this sense, intellectual property is a very important point in this process. So with this, I am going to ask the first question to Mariana. Mariana, according to a study carried out in carried out by the Brazilian PTO, 42% of startups were using intellectual property system. In your decision process, in your various investment rounds, have you observed any changes in this? And what is the weight of intellectual property in the decision-making in investing or not?
Yes, it is important to remember that according to this study, 64 startups actually applied for software protection. And this is, very little. People, they worry about registering the mark, but they think the process will take long. They are not actually well instructed regarding the process, and the level of entrepreneurs have been improving. Today you have companies with programs that instruct these investors and train these investors. That's what I mean, especially regarding the legal framework, because in the case that I presented, the product was very interesting, but the company disappeared from night to day if the product does not have a protection, and the company hadn't monetized at the time, so there was a great loss of time by the investors and the entrepreneurs. So there is a risk when we think about all the variables. And this risk, it can be foreseen, mitigated, so it doesn't make sense to neglect this risk. So it is up to us to inform people as of the beginning. So the company makes a presentation, and the company is looking for the investors. And when the company presents us the project, the first questions we raise are: do you have a protection? Do you have a patent? Do you have the intellectual property registration? And that's our idea at Capital. We invest in innovation that has a specific intellectual property protection. That's our aim. Otherwise, you're no longer a innovative startup. You end up as a company like any other that will grow, expand, open branches. It is different. Because sometimes we see some projects that are small-sized, but they do not really correspond to a startup because it's not innovative. And innovation, it's not like creating the wheel, but it's really like how you can assemble it in the car. So it's important to train and inform our counterparts. And nowadays, we are all interested in helping companies finding investors, but this issue goes unnoticed. So I think it is up to us to inform the entrepreneurs, to make them think about this, and to file the application since the very beginning. Thank you very much, Mariana. So a tip for the organization, an advice for the organization, because this topic is very interesting and it could be discussed. Priscilla, I'm sorry. It's very clear. It's a very clear message. Without protection, there is no investment. I mean, yes, in a nutshell, that's it. So that interesting to see the investor's perspective. Yeah, definitely, definitely. And especially in a scenario presenting so many risks. So the more risks we can mitigate, the more precision and certainty we might have. Thank you, Philippe, for your contribution. And the startup topic makes me think about another thing, which is the open innovation. So now a question that I would like to make to Edison. So Bayer is amid the 50 most innovative countries according to the Boston Consulting Group list that was published in 2020, and Bayer was also awarded last year as one of the most engaged companies with innovation in Brazil. So can you please share this experience with us and tell us how the IP is dealt with in this type of partnership? And then Mariana, can you tell us about open innovation and if this is part of Capital's strategy? So Priscilla, thank you. Great question. Although Bayer invests massively in its own research and development, we know there are extraordinary and disruptive innovations being created beyond our doors, beyond our companies. So we
adotar uma posição não inventado aqui.
Cannot adopt a different position. The base for future innovation is the collaboration. It depends on collaboration.
De open innovation.
Our open innovation model forces partnerships, collaboration. We fund, we accelerate several projects, startups, research centers, several stakeholders, and not only in Brazil, actually all over the world where Bayer operates. And an important topic that we should touch upon is the fact that our company has specific centers for open innovation and facility sharing with other companies that we partner with, and we call them life hubs. Here in the city of São Paulo, there is one of these hubs, another one in the United Kingdom, which is very much focused on artificial intelligence. We have a hub in the United States, in Germany, in other parts of the world. As to intellectual property, this is very important. As Felipe mentioned, this is key so that we can maintain our data with and our investment with research and development. And it deals with several factors, say the maturity of the project, the financial support is needed,
business case,
issues related to business case. I mean, how would the solution be used in the market, regulation, issues regulatory related, aspects, a risk assessment needs to be carried out when we start collaborating through such like projects. And the models are flexible. It's a case-by-case choice. And definitely that's a principle, one of the principles of our organization that fosters open innovation more and more. Thank you, Edson. Mariana, can you please give your perspective now? Yes, I know Baya's initiative. I think this is very interesting. It's been implemented more and more and very much used by students as well. And Capital also contributes to this type of project. We participated in a project that aims to go to the universities, and we have several sponsors, including the RF Hub. That is very active in the open innovation area. And the idea is to put together these partners. And we had 1,900 students from schools in Brazil simulating startups. Actually, they study some startups, they pick up some, and then they make a simulation as if they were entrepreneurs looking for investment. So it's you start to create this landscape, this scenario, and you start training youth in Brazil. And the idea is to bring opportunities to places where it was not possible because they are very much concentrated in the city of São Paulo. And it's very interesting to bring this to youth so that they can leave university better prepared, not only with the willingness of the entrepreneurs, but aware of everything that is important and related. And of course, that this includes the protection of innovation. We encourage that very, very much, and we will continue to do so. And it should be done as of the beginning, you know, when the entrepreneur is formed. Thank you so much, Mariana. Priscilla, I don't know if you want to add something. I just wanted to say that the audience asked the 3 questions. 2 have been answered, but there is one last question that was made to Edson. You talked about it, but in case you want to make another comment. The question was made by Rafael Guerrante. Can you tell about the applications of CRISPR-Cas9 in agriculture, when, how? You've talked extensively about the technology, but you have any additional information? Well, the application of genomic edition in Brazil is not new. At the CTN-Bio website, you have consultations that have been carried out in lots of territories. And I can maybe give you one example, which is the cirrhosis amidus with a high percentage of amylopectin. Amylopectin is a polysaccharide, and it requires a lot of energy. It's a highly nutritious food. This is one of the applications, for instance, and it deals with the future of the humanity, better nourishing the population. And we know that we're going to have less natural resources available. So, and that's because of the climate change. So this type of advancement is very, very important. And this is only one example. Thank you very much, Edson. And now, Priscilla, I can give you back the floor in case you wanted to make a question or to wrap up, or maybe make a final question because the time is tight. Well, up to you. Yes. I was going to ask you this question because we approached the end. I have one more question to André. I just got the information that we can continue a little longer. Please ask the question.
André, pesquisando um pouco sobre a SPAC, né, eu verifiquei ali que
researching on SPAC, I realized that the work you carry out deals with verifying the value perception the client has regarding a specific product. Can you see a positive correlation between technologies that have a patent and the perception of value by the client?
Excellent question. Edson made a very interesting comment when he says to stay in farming, you need to study, work hard, go to school. Before it was the opposite. I am going to show you a slide. The figures are in our DNA. Here, you can have any correlation. We have the decision makers in farming in 14-15 harvest. 27% had primary school, then secondary school, and 0.4% of postgrad. Look, decision makers now, 32% already have gone to higher education. From 45 to 51% secondary school and primary school is really a minority of those making decisions in farming. This shows very clearly that farming, I have another slide, but I'm not going to show because of the sake of time. So also decision makers have become younger. If you're going to place them in age brackets,
com essa educação superior vem também a adaptabilidade, vem também a valoração.
Higher education, there is expectation of innovation that comes. Many startups, you see technologies that Edson has mentioned reflected in production. We have a number of new technologies that will have adaptability tested in the next crop. I think now farming is a lot more receptive to innovation, intensive. We need intensive technology to feed all the people. And if there's a positive trade-off between the cost and the benefits that you have as a farmer to the environment, economic terms, and so on, I am sure that everyone is going to join and it's just going to grow. So there is no doubt about that. We talk about corn, coffee, soya, all these crops, you will see that you have farmers that are very receptive to innovation, but obviously they need to benefit. Farmers need to benefit. You have to, everybody needs to benefit. I would have just a final question to Mariana. You already said about the intellectual property culture. To develop that is a challenge in Brazil. It's an everyday task. Have you seen a change in culture in terms of intellectual property according to experience within startups? Are they embracing the culture? Has there been any evolution? That is my question. Yes, this has happened very much thanks to the education models that are present now. If you have schools Now, dealing with these topics, people now have so much access to social media. So people can see examples of companies that had a high potential and start struggling and having legal problems for something that could have been solved way before. So I believe that this is going to have an evolution at Capital. We start talking a bit about this with people that have a validated product and that already have well-identified intellectual property. So when they contact us, they have some concern as to this topic, but that's not what we see in general terms. I believe with education, with this reinforcement, this is going to happen. Felipe, if you allow me, I am a chairman of an institute to foster sustainability. We have invested in 15 million reais in more than 1,500 projects. None of them have generated intellectual property. None of them have generated patents. I was also Izaki Alumni Association, Agribusiness, because I'm also a board member and so on. So this culture is not at the university. I don't know the legal structure of intellectual property in universities. Professors, students, they are creating new things all the time, and you don't see a culture turned to generating resources to the universities. Some students who are not fair angels, or the GV angels, they're not related to the university. They use the names of these universities, but they're not necessarily directly linked to them, trying to attract these people. These people are thinking about this 24/7. What Mariana talks about in terms of primary school. My son, who's in secondary school, and my daughter too, they have lessons on financial management. They have innovation classes. He has participated in an event, in an innovation event. So he has told me, how, if I have an idea, how can I protect that idea? So we are very far behind. Brazil needs to accelerate this. Unfortunately, we see a lot of talk, but not so much. There's so many examples. This is crucial. We are trying precisely to understand this and see how I can help. 70% of our projects are research projects, applied research projects. So in 20 years, so many projects, no intellectual property. This is a very important issue for the private sector, also for public universities, on how to adapt their culture, internal rules, and interaction with society so that this is going to evolve. So if there's no compensation, there's no point. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's surprising. As I said, this is a huge job. It's an everyday task, educating everyone. Obviously, as you said, we are very far behind compared to other countries in Asia, in Europe. Unfortunately, our time is up. And I'd like to thank you, Andre, Mariana, Edson, for your incredible presentations, very informative. We had a really comprehensive perspective on intellectual property and agribusiness. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for your comments and your valuable contribution to the panel. With this, I wrap up and close this panel for now. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.